does not police its ranks, does not draw lines, if a political movement neglects to protect its borders, if it does not defend its sacred values, it cannot long endure. We may wind up spending the next few years watching the same story we just lived through on the other side, as the far right, and not the way cable defines it, which includes almost everyone in this room today, but as the real far right devours what remains of the center right.
Okay, so in this clip, we are going to touch on some topics that may be a little, controversial. I hate using that word. Inconvenient, right? But, that's what we do on this channel, and I promise y'all the inconvenient truth. I am grateful to every eye that lands on these videos and everybody who's commenting. As a matter of fact, tonight I plan on staying up late and getting into the comment section. There's been a lot going on, and that's why I haven't, but I want to thank everybody who is watching, okay? So please don't forget to hit the like and subscribe button and the notification bell. Sorry for the long, drawn-out explanation, but anyway, let's go ahead and get to it.
That was the founder of the Free Press, Bari Weiss, who decided to go after what she dubbed the far right. And she also stated that it could corrupt the entirety of the conservative movement if left unchecked. So Weiss did take some not so subtle shots at specific individuals, namely Tucker Carlson in particular. So we'll get to him in just a minute. But first, let's hear a little more of Weiss's thoughts on the far right overall.
This group says that we're in a war here at home, and that because we're at war, because the stakes are life and death, the normal rules of the game need to be suspended. They say that those who don't go along with that are squishes or traitors, or they were secret leftists all along. Or they accuse them of being conservative or Republican in name only, which is a version of the false consciousness that Marxists are so fond of telling people that they suffer from.
Very interesting that she would bring up Marxists, considering Karl Marx and his... Basically, she's talking about like radical people on the right. Now, these terms, again, they're so subjective, very subjective, where the things like I say, when I say abolish the Civil Rights Act, right, that could be considered a radical. Even myself, like, I joke around, but I'm always like, yo, somebody would call me radical or whatever. Like, I'm playing around, but like, I'm kind of not. There's no reason to call these things radical. It's like you're just looking at infrastructure wondering, what are we doing here, right? Because, hello, Elon's doing it right now with Doge, and everybody's sitting up here clapping for him. So, what is different? If we're abolishing the Department of Education, what is so different if I say abolish the Civil Rights Act or the Patriot Act, right? But Bari Weiss would have a problem with me saying that.
They say it's not enough to return to normal or renew our old values, because that's not an option. Instead, what they say is that it's time to give the other side a taste of their own medicine. They say, we were treated cruelly, and so cruelty is the only response.
I have to correct one small...
Now, let me just be clear before Anna goes on her fake correction. I didn't watch this, and I'm just assuming that it's going to be a fake correction, right? But, like, I don't promote violence. I disavow violence in that order, of like, oh, make them pay type of thing. So I've never heard anybody say that. So I don't know what that's about.
Thing. And look, a lot of people make this argument. It's not founded in reality. There's a lot of people running around online who like to call themselves Marxists, and they're not Marxists. They're radical liberals. There are like 5, like I could count them on my hand, Marxists in the country. I know them personally. None of them subscribe to the rad lib, doctrine of hall monitoring and speech policing or any of that stuff. So I just want to make that quick correction. But she's making this argument, Cenk, about how the Democratic Party has really suffered as a result of their failure in getting control of some of the more excessive I guess the excesses of the radical liberals. But
okay, because Ana just did something there that I have to now, correct her on. Because Ana doesn't like religion. Like, let's just keep it real. She doesn't, right? So, and in 2 weeks, I'm going to start streaming like heavy, because I want to get I hate saying I want to get in front of this issue that I feel like we're having in this country, where there's not true conservative representation. But there's a lot that goes into that, okay? But that's a whole different story. I am not here to browbeat anybody with my religion, okay? I want to tell you right now, as a Christian, one of our very endearing beliefs is that you have free will to love God if you want, okay? That's what makes this relationship with Jesus so special, because it's like you're not forced to be a Christian. You don't have to believe in God, okay? But you have this relationship where it's like, oh my gosh, you're so beautiful, I love the Lord and all of that. Okay, so put that aside. So I always want to make that point, because I don't believe in forced conscription, and anybody who's really into their practice of life wouldn't. So coming back to it, she says the Marxists, I don't know any real Marxists that are really radical, like these libs who want to censor people. It's not about that. Karl Marx, I want to be very clear, his whole statement, his whole being was he wanted to bring the downfall of God. He hated God, family, property. Okay? And he wanted to bring that downfall. So that's already radical to me from the start. Let's just be very clear.
Can you make that same parallel with the conservatives?
Yeah. So look, I think that this is complicated. And she's about to take on Tucker Carlson, and I'll probably agree with Tucker on some of it. And there's a code word that she used there. It seems benign, American values, and she'll talk about Western values. It's not benign. If she really meant it, then it would be perfectly great. But I'll tell you what it actually means in a minute. But when she distinguishes between the far right and the center right, I appreciate that. I think that makes sense. Because not everyone on the right is the same. And in fact, I draw another distinction. Then there's the moderates and the independents that voted for Donald Trump, who just hate the establishment, and he seemed less establishment. I don't even think they're right-wing at all. So that portion, right? So it's a big spectrum, and there are different parts of the spectrum. And so, and of course, I've talked about the far left versus the center left, the populist left, and everybody catches feelings over it. And why? Because both the far right and the far left are incentivized to pretend that all of the voters on their side agree with them. No one actually elected them to those positions. No one actually voted that way. In fact, when we do vote, they almost always get annihilated, both the far right and the far left. But they say, no, we are the kings and queens of what is left and what is right. So
I see why the left really does come for Cenk, because he just, says whatever. I don't know about all of that with the far left, and, you do what you got to do over there. Okay, but I would be considered what they call far right because of my Christianity, right? Like I said, I don't go with these labels, far right, far left. You could say all of that, but to be honest, you really can't peg me. But because I believe in God first and follow Christ, okay? In the name of God, I'm a sinner, but there's a reason why I'm saying this. They call you like a fundamentalist because you know that there are rules in the Bible. And so I would be considered far right in his eyes. I certainly would, because I don't believe in transgenderism. I don't, everybody can do whatever they want in their personal lives. Again, I'm not here to force anybody about anything, but I do not take these values of homosexuality, things like that. I don't. Right? But that doesn't mean I hate people. I think that, under God, you could be much better, all of that, right? All right, bet. Myself included with my own sins, right? Okay. So, but like Cenk, nobody thinks that they're the king or queen, so you still don't get it. So stop explaining what the far right is or whatever that's called, all right? Like, you guys don't like rules, so you just want to live in complete anarchy. And there's actually a little part of me that wouldn't mind an anarchical state in this government, because we just really need to redo everything, but that's a different video.
The fact that she's pushing back against that on the right, I think is terrific. I think the other thing that she's pushing back against that's terrific is this idea of violating the normal rules and laws of America. No, we should follow the laws of America. And that is, shouldn't be a right-wing or a left-wing position, but certainly that used to be a right-wing position, rule of law, right? At least a talking point. So, and she's right when she points out that the far right makes excuses for Donald Trump, saying, potentially ignore the courts and then that he's above the law. Oh, well, they did it. That's the most common excuse I hear. Well,
all right, so, I just want to kind of get to the point where Weiss takes a jab at Tucker because Cenk is just saying dumb stuff. The far right is not accepted by MAGA, okay? That's a fact. I can tell you right now on Twitter, there's like this whole fight right now about like what these people call the far right again is like, like people who really like are with these conservative, like actual conservative values. Where it's not that you don't hate, it's not that you hate law and order, but you understand your Constitution and what you're supposed to be able to do underneath that Constitution. Furthermore, before all that, you understand that you are created by a creator and that you're not supposed to worship creation before the creator, right? And there's a lot that goes with that. So him sitting there saying that the far right is making excuses for Trump, no. I could probably tell you that most people who are considered the far right may not have voted for Trump, or if they did, they're questioning a lot of things right now. Okay, so you see what I mean? They just go with the headlines. Like, they just make me sick. I just want to get to the Tucker part.
The idea of by any act necessary to get what you want, that's unacceptable.
Yeah, because you're not a real American. You don't really understand it. And look, dig this again. I want to be very clear. Like, I'm not here to promote violence, right? But I'm sorry, I was brought up in the 90s, y'all. I'm an 80s baby, 90s kid. Sorry, maybe they shouldn't have taught me about our forefathers, right? Isn't that what the Revolutionary War, like all of this stuff? And I grew up in the South. Sorry, I have that blood in me. Even if somebody be like, that's not your history because you're not white. Like, that's fine. You can say that about me, but whatever. It was indoctrinated into me, or whatever you want to call it. And guess who also made sure I understood it was my father. Because he said, you're born here, you're an American, you have rights. Okay? Okay. Okay. But anyway, let's get to the Tucker part finally, right?
You have to follow the law and you have to keep constitutional rights in mind. And so I agree with Bari Weiss on this. Now, she went on to criticize Tucker Carlson in her speech. Let's give that a watch.
Just as the left defaced and desecrated statues of Churchill, the vandals on the right desecrate his name and his memory. While the left, long sympathetic with Stalin, today sympathizes with modern-day Nazis in the form of Hamas, the new right eulogizes the original ones. And in rehabilitating Hitler, and I'm not exaggerating, they don't just demonize Jews, but they demonize the West itself.
No, they don't. No, they don't. Okay. So, look, and I think, we'll leave it there. All right, let's just see. All right, let me see what Ana has to say, and then we'll wrap it up. This is taking a lot longer than I expected, but it's a pretty interesting conversation. And if TYT is going to bring it to the forefront, I'm going to pick it up and add the reality to it.
I'm going to let you take this one, Cenk.
Yeah, there we go. When they demonize it, poor victim Israel, they demonize all of the West. So you in Kansas, even though it looks like you giving $300 billion to Israel is a giant waste of your money, no, Israel is the bulk of Western values. The West loves to commit genocide and ethnic cleansing. And if anyone doesn't voluntarily give up their land to Israel, the West values is to slaughter them endlessly.
So, and this is where I agree with Cenk. Now, he'll still, like, at that right there, that's it right there, right? But he wouldn't agree with me going further because these people are afraid of history. Y'all already know on this channel, I keep it, and I think I'm losing followers because of this. It is what it is. I mean, I love, every eye that lands on these videos, but I'm not here to lie to you. I'm not. I prayed on this. Like, how much of this stuff do I want to talk about? I'm not here to convince you, but 600,000 people murdered in a year and a half. I'm sorry, and we funded it. kind of doesn't feel good, right? So yeah, I'm not one of those Christians who has to bless Israel in order to be blessed. This is where to, again, like, I'll sound like the left, because guess what? I don't want, there's this whole thing about putting the 10 Commandments in schools and all of these kind of things. I don't want any of that, because we have too many Christian Zionists that are involved in our government that take everything and indoctrinate it to Israel, where we're not worshiping Christ, we're worshiping Israel. And this is a huge problem. Like, it is, because there's a lot of people who aren't following Christ anymore. They're just like, if you say anything about Israel, it's like, oh, how dare you? They won't even listen to Jewish people tell them that Israel's actually not doing the right thing. Okay? So anyway, and that's a problem. So that's what you call a cult. This is where, I can understand some of the arguments here. Coming back to the point, Bari Weiss is what she's doing there. She's doing the whole Americanism is Zionism and all that. No, it's not. It's America. She's like dredging up all this stuff like, oh, they don't love witches in church. She's afraid. She's afraid because she thinks that if people realize the realities and the lies that we've been told, that somebody's going to get her. Nobody's thinking about you, Bari. Nobody would even come, like, ever. Like, we don't promote violence. But the American people have a right to the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth. And I can tell you, we have not gotten that. There have been so many lies told to us that it is almost treasonous. It is to the point where, like, I look at these media people, I look at the textbooks, and I'm like, this is treasonous to the people of this country. And I don't care what I sound like saying this or who might get offended, but I believe, again, that the American people, as much as they pay for everything going on and fund everything going on, they have the right to the whole truth, the real truth, and nothing but the truth. And I'll leave it there.